Hello, our lovely Girl Awakening listeners. Welcome to 2023. I'm Jo Hendy from the Sacred Sister Project.
I'm Amanda Parker of Mayala Organics.
Come with us as we journey into this week's Awakening episode.
I talk to a spirit.
Good morning. Good afternoon, I mean.
We do that every time. It's like we muck around with timelines. We don't need to worry about it.
Who cares what the time is? Good day, Amanda.
How are you?
Well, it's come around again, our monthly gateway, which is now the 7th of the 7th. Wow. So it actually feels like a powerful time because it's kind of halfway point.
We've tipped past the halfway into that run towards the next equinox, the next solstice. The wheel keeps turning.
Yeah. I love how you know so much about astrology. So I thought, let's open up with, because we're sitting in kind of the shadow phase of this beautiful super full moon. If you can kind of just, before we go into our beautiful Zhara, share a little bit what the energy's been around.
Well, it's Cancer Sun, Capricorn full moon, and Cancer Sun, it's all about energies of the home, the heart, family. It's a water sign, and this Capricorn moon pulling a lot of the energies around that into alignment with the moon sitting in opposition, if you want to put it that way, to the sun. So there's two luminaries are shining a light on each other, highlighting all the things that feel beautiful around what makes us happy in our heart, through our home, and family, but also what isn't making us happy through our heart and family and home. So it's a beautiful, powerful opportunity to really just be discerning, show clarity, some of our favourite words this year around those areas, and honour what feels right for you, what feels true for you in your heart space.
That seems to be a common theme throughout the whole year, doesn't it?
Oh,
I mean, it should be just part of our DNA now.
Yeah,
Our truth. Speaking our truth,
Yeah. So if anyone's been feeling emotional this week, just honour it. Don't try to hide it. Don't try to shove it down like is a common tendency, and soldier on. Feel it. Tap into somebody close to you that you know sees you.
Yeah.
And share.
That might be the theme. I have a feeling Zhara might be talking a little bit more about this.
Hi,
Hello,
Zhara.
beautiful lady.
Hey, Jo. Hi, Amanda. So lovely to be here as always.
Yes,
Thank you for
so
having
good.
me.
We love having you.
Yeah.
I love being here.
This is a beautiful, just the whole word around the gateway to the month and the portal energy just feels like it's a really focused opportunity to be focused around where am I at, where am I going, and the collective energy as well. How do I sit in with the collective? I think, Zhara, you really communicate that so much truly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Making it because that collective, it is a part of us, and we actually have to honor it through these seasons that we're walking, but we have to maintain truth in the individual nature. And so how to do that, that's the balance point, it seems to me. And that's been the path for so many of us in really coming back to the truth of what we believe, but honoring where the collective stands. And maybe where the collective stands hasn't been so easy for some people.
Yeah.
Because what we're experiencing is that separation between darkness and light, and it's perfect. We're wearing, Jo and I are wearing black today, and Amanda's sandwiched in the middle with the wine.
My stuff fluffy.
And and it is that integration into the whole where we have to acknowledge that shadow. And so as we're bringing it to the surface, as we are in this collective reality right now, right, we're seeing the darkness that is out there on so many different levels. But we can't ignore it. We can't put our head in the sand, but we can't also condemn it.
Yeah.
We have, and as hard as this may be, we have to love it. We actually have to realize this is a part of the collective unfolding that we are each individuated from, and so that darkness actually sits within us as well. And that's the real healing, is where when you can really tap in to the depths of your soul to see the monsters and the demons and everything unwanted within, and then you can make this integration, and that integration is a portal to the heart.
So just for our
Feeling
listeners
that.
on that, because it's so deep. What you say is always so deep. You know, it's
We can
so-
bring it up.
Yeah, I was going to say for
Yeah.
our listeners, what
Yes.
does that? How does that look like? And how would that show in the body, or how would that? You know, how can we support the listeners in understanding more about what that means?
Okay, you know what? I'm going to use myself as an example here because it's a path I've been walking my whole life, really. But really, I've gone into spaces. Where are we? So my daughter was probably about 2 or 3, and as soon as I stepped out of a situation with her dad that wasn't in integrity for any of us, as soon as I stepped out of that situation, it was like, all my gifts came online, and it was like I was walking around enlightened. I was just, the typical like Eckhart Tolle version of enlightened, where you just see beauty, you see grace, you see everything as one, and you just see this magic everywhere, and you see literally just every piece of this creation as the oneness that it really is, right? And so when you're in that space, all you see is light. It's like literally all I saw was light. And it's a space that I couldn't hold because I hadn't come down and integrated the deepest, darkest parts of my world in my consciousness.
So this is before you. So what was the catalyst? Like, did anything happen to you to know that you needed to make that shift, to leave that person or that relationship?
I had someone, I think it was my highest self, but I had someone, literally my business partner at the time, amazing woman, she was just like all spiritual personal development, and she said, she taught me the word integrity. She actually literally taught me the word integrity. You are not in integrity with yourself because you don't want to be there. It's not integrity with him because he needs someone who loves him. Yeah. And it's not integrity with your daughter because she can feel that. You're showing her something. And so, because my whole life was people pleasing, which so many of us, especially females, do. It's just and men do it as well, but let's just not rock the boat, make everyone feel good. When I finally got my head around that, and it took a while to do because it was scary and it was hard.
So was life chaos when you were in that?
No, life it wasn't.
So you did.
He was great. He's a wonderful person, wonderful human being. Not the person I'm supposed to be with.
So
wonderful person.
This is the part where I want to just go. How did you
Pull
know?
that apart.
How did you know? Was your body giving you any indications? Were you sick? Were you, was there anything that was apart from your? I understand what you say when you say your higher self and all that, but did you have any other indications? No.
Yes. Actually, I knew I wasn't supposed to be with him. I just knew it. I just knew it. I just knew, but I didn't want to break up because I didn't want to hurt the feelings. And then all of a sudden, my daughter's there, and then I'm like, 18 years, I can do this. To not hurt someone's feelings.
And that everything looked great from the outside looking in.
Yes.
So people would question you, like, why?
Yes.
Not understanding.
Yes. And there's taboo, obviously, leaving relationship as well.
Yes.
There's you want to make it work. You want to make relationship with this person work, and sometimes we're not supposed to do it in the form that we've set forth. I don't know if I've digressed there, Joe.
I guess too, like, because when you have a friendship with somebody and you're spending time with them for a long time, so I was with my husband for 35 years, like, someone for a long time, it's like that you can exist in that space, but there's the heart, the spark, that life force that wants.
It's a higher calling,
and you can
isn't it?
be looking for it in lots of places, like pursuits or adventures or this or that. But when you come back down to just two hearts, it's whether they're like, how are they beating together, isn't it? So I know what you're saying around, pleasing each other and being in the same space. It all works. But whether it's an integrity is a totally different thing. Yeah.
Because sometimes your soul has a calling. Yeah. Sometimes your soul needs to be somewhere. Sometimes there's a timing for relationship. Yeah. And that's, I think, one of those things we may not honor as much as we should because we are we go linear with it and we go with the mind. Yeah. And this person's great. Whether it's a friendship or romantic relationship. and you start to make the pro and con list.
Yeah.
And when the higher self's calling, when the highest aspect of you wants to actually arrive, it can't actually necessarily be done.
And sometimes we don't understand that. We just have a knowing, but we don't quite understand. And I think that leads into where we were going with this. It's like, so we make that choice like you did without understanding probably the shadow of that.
Yes.
And so now it's like it'll come, there is a time where it'll come through.
Yes.
Where it's time to now face what we didn't face.
Yes.
Yeah.
And do you think too, like, because like we've talked about, like there's talk around since 2012 that there's been a big change in the Earth frequency and the light energy that's coming through where the Earth and all us as people, as beings, are going. There's kind of like a point where what worked reached its
threshold
threshold. It's used by date, if you want to put it that way.
You can't do that
and
anymore,
then the energy's coming in and going, okay, those souls that know they have a calling, stepping into that calling, going, okay, I'm getting this feeling, or I'm getting that thought, or I'm starting to see something different. Does that make sense?
100%, Amanda, because it is that time, and it's actually always been that time, is that the soul's always had a calling, it's always had a purpose, it's always had a mission, and that is to experience the greatest dimension of love that you can possibly have on this planet. And if you put that first and foremost outside of the holographic reality field that we're playing in, then your highest self can actually lead you home.
It's so, it's
how
like I hear you saying it and I go, yes, you know,
Hallelujah.
but then you've got to, like, you know, you've got to trust.
Oh,
You have to
so
fully
much
trust. And it's like, am I willing? Do I have the willingness? You know, because it's not, it's easy to say. It's easy to sit here and say that. But then move out of this room and go outside, get in my car, drive home, get onto that roof, completely different space. Can I hold that space? You know, can I trust that everything that walks in that door, every energy that's going to be in front of me, is what I need in that moment?
And I think that's a paradigm in itself, because there's so many different constructs we can create in this reality field. But if you believe that, that is what is going to occur, right? And so I think there's nothing greater than coming to the fact of, I trust myself to lead me home. I trust myself. I trust my guides who are working with my highest aspect of self to lead me in the right direction. And I think sometimes when we get, like, you know, caught up in the it's not working, which I've been in lately, I was telling you guys before we started the podcast, is it's been this push and pull. Like, I want to go one direction, like, because I've started something, I want to finish it. And
Wow, that's a big one in itself, isn't it?
and I'm like, no, I'm not ready to drop this. And
I can see a path forward.
and so I've been struggling with that. And my highest self is saying, you're not actually ready yet. You haven't actually integrated the deepest, darkest parts of the shadow.
Wow.
And so you can't actually do your work to the level of effectiveness that you could if you did this work first. And so I recognized what was going on, but I was fighting against it. Because for me, it's like, okay, we're on, like, I know this energy, I know love, I know light, I know, you know, and I know darkness as well. I've had so much of that occur in my own lifetime and also interdimensionally, and I've been getting this huge training around it. But it's like, until I actually stepped into, and I was telling Amanda and Joe this morning, when I stepped in this morning to this portal of, like, really looking at the darkness within the self, like really acknowledging it and not bypassing it, but loving it, really loving it and going there with joy, because it's just another aspect of creation.
And it's there. So, you know, you have two choices. You either hate it, avoid it, suppress it even more, or you allow it, you love it, you look at it, you know.
It's the language that we have with ourselves too, isn't it? Because again, I think there's been that frequency shift, or whatever you want to call it, that where the past no longer serves us. We're like the old mindset of, like, I'm having a bad day, I'm having a bad week, I'm feeling really down, whose fault is it, or I need this, I want that, why isn't it happening? It's really coming into that space of, okay, this week isn't feeling in resonancy. Where's my shadow self sitting in this? How have I been talking to myself? What am I seeing around me when I look around me? What's my connection with
self-responsibility?
Those words.
That's those words, isn't it? It's wild. I know Trev's been saying this a lot. You know, if we can look at everything first of all, it's not happening to me, it's happening for me. And then it's not happening for me, it's happening through me. And then it's not happening through me, it's happening by me.
Because you are the creator.
Yeah.
Because you are the one.
Yeah, everything.
Yes.
I love how you bring the creator and the one into, there's no reducing the separation from that ultimate concept of what is.
Yes, because that is the ultimate truth, is that we are just all these individualized fractals of source having experience and getting perspective through different lenses, right? But you and I are literally one and the same, and that is the biggest version of the picture. And then we have individualized, so we have our own boundaries to set, we have our own agendas that we're fulfilling, but we are all just reflections in this holographic universe. So how do we respect each other, hold our boundaries when it comes to relationship, and move on when the time isn't right? I think that's what you were talking about, you wanted to really dive into today, is relationship, because a relationship with the self and with the source isn't any different than relationship with another, with someone else sitting across from you.
God, that seems like we're absolute miles away from that. Seriously, when you really look at that.
As a collective society, yes,
so much
we are.
gunk in between.
And that's why we're having the conversation, because the more that it comes to the awareness, right, the more that we can actually become enlightened. And enlightened isn't, like that feeling that it's not the Eckhart Tolle enlightened. Enlightened is actually just coming to the version of the self that's authentic.
Yeah.
With yourself and each other.
Yeah. And that's one step. I was just thinking about that then, because there's compassion. I feel like we're really only getting to that step, having compassion for another, and empathy and all those type of things. But even they say, having empathy for somebody is not really empowering anyone. It's just not. It's not really changing anything.
Yeah.
It's the first step of recognition.
And understanding. But I feel like we're at a level of compassion, and that what you just talked about then feels like it's like light years away.
Miles away. And I think, the thing is, it's not miles away. It's not light years away, because it is who we are. Like, that is us.
Yes.
And so it's literally just breaking down the gateway to that, and that is the heart. And how do you move from the heart into the caves and into the gullies and into the streams and the mountains and all of the terrain that you need to move through in order to really experience that? And that is, I believe, why we're here on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And so we're doing it individually, but we're also doing it as this big collective conscience. And how do we make room for that? Like, how do we make room for that and hold that and not... Look, we need to hold each other accountable. I'm talking about on the world stage. It's so important to hold each other accountable.
So much happening in that space at the moment.
Right. And we actually do need to hold certain individuals responsible, and we can't turn a blind eye. But if we can look at them through the eyes of the one, which is Kasutayana Sutasya, I see you for me, and I see you as a remnant of the past, because we are evolving into a higher collective light. I can't let you do that anymore. And the more that we can awaken to that frequency, the better we're going to breathe, really. And it's the breath that will actually take you there to
breath. I'm gonna, because a friend and I were talking during the week about a kind of I guess an analogy for what we're talking about now, and she was sharing that she's the only one in her family that chose to be sovereign and autonomous and not take the medicine that's been offered the last few years, and she's had to just accept that she can't change anything in her family dynamic because they're all very content with how they are, And she's moved into a space of supporting them in that space and hoping that they will eventually support her back in the same way.
Right.
Which is one concept altogether of the relationship and the family and the struggles that so many of us have been through these last few years. But she was also, we were talking about shadow work, and we were talking about, you know, when we're talking, feeling the pain, the darkness, you know, and the shitty way that we can talk about ourselves.
Yes.
And you know, through our conversation, it was just beautiful because we were just going, yes, yeah, and like really what we'd both been feeling these last few weeks, and came to the recognition of like the more we lean into working with our shadow and not away from it, and seeing it and asking of the shadow, what is it it's here to communicate or share or gift us, have the dialogue with it rather than trying to push it away or push it down, and then making friends with it. We're taking away the fear around who we are in ourselves, but also that then was reflecting on the collective and the community, and taking the fear and the control and the darkness out of what's happening around us as well. And it just felt like a really beautiful connection into how acknowledging ourselves, our self-responsibility and the light and the dark in ourselves can make such a dynamic change to what's going on out there without focusing on out there so much, but being self-responsible and loving in here in this space.
Because you are all of it.
Yeah.
And if we want to look at past lives, and I believe in time's not linear, so it's all happening at the same moment. But you have been, each one of us has been the darkness and the light. Each one of us has been the abuser and the abused. Each one of us has been the victim and the victimizer. And so that's one way to acknowledge, okay, this is the role I'm playing this time, right? Whether that's the abused or the abuser. And most of your listeners would probably be on the abused side, the victim side, whether that's in the individual state or in the collective state. I've been the other side. You can start to have compassion and empathy for the self, which is a part, like you said, it's a part of the rising process.
Yeah.
And holding the grief close, actually, when you start to acknowledge that you've done it as well. You've done this too. You've raped, you've molested, you've murdered. You've actually done this.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And there's actually, when we really get back to it, there's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. And isn't it confronting? There's nothing wrong with it.
Excuse me.
But what you're actually saying is it's all part of the one experience that gets fractalized down until we embrace it in a way that brings everything back together again.
Right.
Into the wholeness, into the...
Okay, so what we are is we're both sides of the coin. We are the abuser, we are the abused.
Yes.
We are the victim, we are the victimizer. In every scenario that you can think of, we are the darkness and we are the light. So when you look at the demons on the outside, you can't actually point a finger and say you're bad. I mean, you can, we do, right? We do, but this is a challenge. This is the end game.
Yeah.
This is the result that we're actually looking for. If we are striving for, an idealized, just quote, an idealized reality where we don't feel pain, it's when we actually embrace the pain. We embrace the demon on the other side of the room, and we recognize that as a self. And I know it is it's
challenging.
Can be challenged, can be very challenging for us, but that's the way. That's the only way that I have ever seen and that I've ever gotten any information about. It is to literally embrace the devil as your own. And I mean that. And it doesn't mean not to set boundaries, etc. We can go into that layer, but first and foremost, recognizing it's another version of you.
Wow, which is a huge one
That's
to take on. Yeah.
Bridging the gap of separation.
Especially if you've got, because I know a lot of listeners will be saying, but...
Yep, go ahead. Throw me the buts, please.
Yeah, so, like, if someone's actually doing, and we've talked about this, that nothing's ever done to you, it's happening for you. But some people can't get past that. It's probably another version of exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
That everything's happening for you, not to you.
Yeah.
So what if there are people in the world, in your life, that are constantly just trying to take you out? Constantly trying to take you out. I know what you're saying. It's beautiful. And yes, we'd love to be at a point where we can actually say, look at them without any judgment and knowing that that's another aspect of me. Yeah. But
you say no to what is not working.
So this is the area that I think we need to
let's totally hone in on this. Okay, so first, if you can see every other version out there as a manifest representation of Source, just as you are, right? But Source is inherently love. It's God-filled. God is love. Yeah. God is this incredible energy field in which all things arise. Yeah. So whether that's a demon, devil, whatever, someone who's hurting you, the worst members of society that you can possibly think of, it doesn't mean you give them free rein. Yeah. Just as in a past lifetime, if that was you, you should not be given free rein. You should be seen as who you are. Yeah. Right? You are the light, you are the dark, you are the all. But you should not be given free rein. And so if that's a personal circumstance where you're in a relationship that's, what did you say, Joe?
Right. It could be a relationship. It could be just people in general that don't actually want to see you be successful or see you winning or see you even aware and conscious. Okay.
So then that in itself is an internal battle. And I've come out of my own as well because I've been really facing the darkness in different aspects because I'm bringing a frequency and a vibration of that's moved to these primordial planes, and so I've experienced this where it's just comes out of the blue and it's just like boom. But I cannot blame anyone. So I've really been looking internal. It's an internal process, and it doesn't mean you don't say no. It doesn't mean you don't speak your truth. It doesn't mean you don't stand for what's right. You have to stand.
So this is where I'm. Yeah, this is where I think we're getting a little bit like. Okay. With is there a time and is there a place and is there a purpose in being able to say, even to the person, no more, or even to the person, I will not give you whatever anymore, or even to the point of calling them out. Is that part of that as well? Is that part of being powerful? Is that part of not standing it anymore? Or
so
is
many
it,
things are running through my head right now.
I know. This is where I think our listeners we can give them some clarity around how to handle these situations. Okay. Yeah, because it's great to think that we can love these people, which one day hopefully we all will be in a space of that. We're all heading that way. But right now, how do I handle this situation?
Okay, so let's get really practical.
Yes.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, so practically we have to say no.
Yeah.
If something is not in integrity with you and the other, no matter what side it's coming from, you say no and you make your stand. And you put the line in the sand. I'm not going to tolerate this behavior because it is not working for me. And I love myself so much, and I love you too. And I know that this is out of integrity with the both of us if I let this continue.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And that's the real, I think, draw card in how we play like the aspect of oneness. And so many people are fighting or they're giving in. Yeah. But it's actually the middle ground. It's I know me, I know you. I know that we're all part of the same source energy. I know that we're having this great little feud and it's all so much fun and we're learning and growing with each other and and we're really here to help each other grow. Yeah. And because I know that, wow, I'm going to take the growth now and learn how to set boundaries. Yeah. And learn how to say, no, I don't deserve to be treated. And it does come back to the love of the self. Yeah. Right.
And some people aren't ready to make the shift.
No.
That other person might not be ready to change, or it's not their time.
And then we have to let go. Yeah. We have to let go to a certain extent. It sounds like, the friend of yours, Amanda, that was able to make peace, and it sounds like her family's able to make peace with where she's at as well, to a certain degree.
Yes and no, because she's not creating resistance anymore. Yes. She's not trying to help them. Yes. Because they don't see that they need help. Yeah. So therefore the resistance is gone from her. And she chooses to interact differently around them,
which makes a big shift, doesn't it?
A huge shift, and everything. She said it's been a really great experiment to be able to enjoy her family and let go of trying to help them.
Or change them.
Because, well, in helping them, I guess you're trying to change them.
Yeah.
Because, you can see what you feel is better for them, but they're perfectly happy with what's happening for them through their own choices.
And that's a big one too. You know, when you know that white bread is not good for you and you try and tell someone else, they don't want to know.
If they like white bread,
if they like white bread, they're going to eat white bread.
And sometimes you're just letting go of the need to control that situation will allow them to spark up
There's
anew.
so many aspects to this conversation, isn't there? There's so many little lead-ins and so many little hooks and
and nuances to the conversation, because
nuances,
it
that's
is
beautiful.
Look,
segues is another one.
Yes.
Love that word too. Nuances and segues.
yes, because you can try to control anyone, but all you're doing is trying to control yourself, right? If you look at the reflection, so how would you want to be treated in the situation? How would you want to be treated in the scenario? And
what would love do?
That's a great question.
What she's fallen back into is just loving them as they are and choosing to continue living her life as she's choosing and taking the resistance out.
And that's beautiful, and that will probably lead to really strong bonds in the family.
They're coexisting well, and she's focusing on other things that is, giving her, she's finding fulfillment in other areas, and then that's serving her well too, because she's continuing her growth, continuing her journey, and other people are coming into her life as well.
Creating space. I just got that when you were saying that too. It's creating space for both of you.
Yeah, because she's not focused on the fight. There's no need to be resistant on the other side, so you've actually just let go of a whole lot of energy that you've been consuming and using.
Wow.
But I think, I want to make it really clear, it is important to say no. And because I don't want to gloss over that, because it is looking at the other as a one, and that's huge. That's the space where we're all, I think, getting to be in this age right now. And this is why there's so much divide going on, is because we're wanting to see the reflection so badly, right? But you can't let people run amok. You can't let yourself run amok. You can't let other people run amok, because then you're sacrificing the whole. Does that make sense?
Yes. Absolutely. And love comes in many ways, you know, and love sometimes means no.
Well, I mean, it sometimes means you have to leave the job.
Yep.
Or you leave the relationship, or it's the same as when you have children. Sometimes, like
let go of control.
Yes. And sometimes, let go, say no, and actually just find another way for them to work out what the better choices are. I hear what you're saying around, saying no is very critical.
Powerful.
But how we say no, especially in situations where we're disempowered, it's a big one to be able to say no, or recognise that there's a way out, that we don't have to stay.
Are you really disempowered?
Yes. Are we really disempowered?
And that, I think, is the critical piece of the puzzle. It has been for me. Am I, and I've had to look at that, am I actually disempowered, or is this something in my hologram that just needs resolving internally? And so if you can move into that space where you're just doing the self-work, the inner reflection, you'll realize you have more strength and more power than you could possibly imagine. And that's as an individual and in this collective reality that we're seeing.
Oh, so much.
So you saying that, I think straight away, we've got it so messed up. Like so upside down and back to front on this planet, because self-worth has become something that's outside of ourselves. In the house or the car we drive, what we wear, our work, everything is outside. It's materialistic, and people will judge you from those things. And the more, for me personally, that I've been even doing this podcast and meeting different people and sitting in these amazing spaces, I've never felt so fulfilled. From nothing more than conversation and space. And it's so amazing.
But you're also doing your soul's work. Like you're in line with your soul's mission right now, which is to expand consciousness. And so as you do it for others, you're doing it for yourself. And that's going to bring joy.
So beautiful. It's so beautiful.
that is
God, I love when I drop into that space. You know, when you drop into a space and you've there's so much in there, so much learnings in there, you know, and it's like, oh, I just had that moment. It was like so beautiful. Yeah.
And I think this is why it's such a big topic that we keep, you know, keep circling back around to with you, Zhara, because of the way that you are embracing your inner journey as a way of being in, you know, tapping into that light as a continuity. Because I fully get what it's like the angel coming back down to earth to do one more good deed, because that's part of being an angel.
Yeah, that's so beautiful.
You know, but you know, it's like you get you know, your wings get bigger or something. You know, when you know, if you look at the classic Disney stories, or you know, because to stay in the light. And our karmic pattern, our ancestral patterns, our energy being, for it to continue to vibrate as a whole, I don't know, one little crack, one little shadow that needs addressing, isn't it? That's okay. Drop down into that. What is that about? The light rebuilds again. You know, that's kind of like a continual.
Look, and it's interesting you bring this up, because it's something that's been on my mind, and I had a conversation. Someone asked me about this the other day, whether we need to do the shadow work, because I've experienced this, because the light is so graceful and so beautiful, and I can just hum along there quite pleasantly. Yeah. But it's brought me a lot of grief. I'm going to be honest with you. It's brought me a ton of grief, because all I was doing was seeing the one, and not actually what was
under your feet.
This reality field that we're playing in. And so this is where I think the power of manifestation comes into the conversation. So I can hum an energy, like just very profound, and just make things happen a lot, like very, you know, just very, very, very intensely. I can just make things happen. And I had to stop, because I was like, oh my goodness, what am I making happen? I didn't have a fully integrated self. And so while everything was a gift and everything was gold, it was like, oh my goodness, I've created this track for myself, because I haven't been willing to like really going down into the deep dark hole. And that's what these situations are showing me, is that I actually have to dive a little bit deeper. And I thought that I could use the power of positivity to move it, or just take these other unintegrated approaches. And so I've been walking this journey of, great, let's just shine the light, and let's just be here for the light. And it's been beautiful and incredible, but there's a whole other aspect of evolution.
Imagine how freaking amazing you'll be when you clear all of that shit.
You know,
we won't even see you. You'll be here and we'll be like, just speak, Zara, just speak.
But I'll be more solidly here on this planet. And that's the truth, because it's not about clearing, it's not about releasing, it's actually about integrating the pain.
Yes.
And so for so many of us, if we stand in these situations where we don't want to be, and we're trying to avoid the pain, or maneuver around it, or just pretend it's not there, it's just going to keep on knocking on our door.
Well, they're the beautiful indicators, aren't they? That are like, everything's going well, but you've just got this little thing over here knocking on this door. Just answer it.
Yes. Yes, and so I just think that if there's anything I can tell your listeners, it's when we stand in the light that's so profound, and it's so present, and it is so required right now. But we're going to get knocked off our pedestal until we really integrate the truth of who we are, and we are the shadow. The shadow is nothing but a reflection of the light. Like we are the dualistic nature of this reality. And when we integrate that dualism, then we can become the one.
And when you say the shadow, it doesn't have to be dark and devil-like and all of those words.
No, not at all.
It can be just little parts of yourself that you just haven't decided to look at. They don't have to be deep and dark and horrible.
Well, sometimes it's our conditioning as our shadow as well, because it's not actually us.
Absolutely, it's part of the program.
Recognising, those things is really powerful, as well as a way of...
Well, that creates the density in us, doesn't it? Those programs, all of that creates the density in us. And then whatever is dense in there, there's no light getting in. So the more we can release the density and the programming and all that, creates more light.
And I think it depends on the soul's journey and the soul's point in evolution, but because some people are scratching the surface and others are really, you know, back for this time around to really, I guess, elevate into the next level
quickly
and the next phase of consciousness. And I think when you are going to those heights, you have to go to those depths. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And so it's because it is that pendulum swing in order to get back to the equilibrium. That's my take, that's my experience, that's what I understand through my highest self, having a little chat.
I agree. I feel, and like you said, the pendulum, I think, is a very powerful way to illustrate, you know, because it applies to so many pathways and conditionings and things like that, to recognise that with change, often we swing to the opposite in order to be able to move to the middle first. Like we might be sitting here, but then once we start to the universe knocks 1, 2, 3 times, get pushed off the pedestal, get pushed off the safe bit of rock, safe ground, and you find yourself sitting in the opposite, which is, you know, our shadow self, if you want to put it that way, and then coming back to the middle where it's the integration to the whole. And I've heard conversations around like moving into the new earth space, that dualism is not a part of that space, that it is the oneness, and it is because we are fully integrated beings. Moving into what that next process is about in that new earth space.
Well, out of the duality,
out of the duality.
And that's what we're walking towards right now. And so there's a lot of people that are on that journey. And it's not an overnight process, right? But it is a process that is going to complete. In some of our lifetimes, some of your listeners' lifetimes are actually going to find that space where they're actually embodying heaven on earth. And so they see that reality within the field around them. And it's let me just say, it's beautiful. Like that's the book I've written. Actually, this conversation is a lot about the book I've just written. So I'll send, maybe we can link it, because it really goes into depth.
Absolutely.
And it's an activation for the integration.
Beautiful.
And it's an activation for New Earth. But it's like it's this portal and it's this light, but we have to bridge the gap. And we can't bridge the gap if we're ignoring the fullness of the spectrum. Does that make sense? And so while it doesn't need to be darkness and demons and it is the pendulum swing, the higher you go.
And it's happening much faster, isn't it? It's like in and out. It's really quick. Because we're getting we're having the realization and we're seeing it, and we're being able to clear it much quicker. So it's we're in the swing mode, but it's we're clearing it. We're clearing it much more because we're getting rid of a lot of the people that aren't resonating, that maybe are toxic or whatever. We're bringing less attachments. We're bringing in people that hold space. You know, there's so many things happening to support all of that happening so fast.
It's a timeline that's accelerating, and there's so many of us who are on that. And it is a time to, like you said, to like gather with people who resonate with you, who can support you through this unfolding.
There's podcasts that are like amazing.
Exactly. Listen every day. But this is the process of evolution where we can actually walk through, I'll term it heaven's gates. So like we can walk to that promised land where we actually have this ability to just be love and joy. And we don't need to go on with the suffering, so to speak. And the suffering has such great gifts. Like the suffering is what we actually designed as the pureness of source. We designed this as a gift for our evolution into wholeness. Right? But you can't see the dark until you see the light, and vice versa.
And it's almost like, well, it is not almost, it is the suffering. It's time for the suffering to end. And the more willing we are to work with our shadow, conditioning, darkness, embrace our lessons, the quicker the suffering will end, isn't it?
It is. And there are some really great tools out there, I think, to shift into this power and the magic that you can be. And I think using those is incredible. Using these tools, it's so incredible. And it can, I'm going to say this hesitantly, my experience has been that it can take you off path, because if you're not willing to look at what's actually there and rooted in, let's take society as a whole, if we're not willing to look at the roots of what's actually going on and what's controlled and what's dominated and what forces have been at play, if we're not willing to look at that, we're just going to bypass and it's going to continue to do its thing, right? Whereas we actually want to make a shift in society. We have to be willing to look at, not just you, me, and your listeners, but society as a whole has to be willing to look at, okay, there have been some calls made that are pretty disturbing, and you have to be willing to dive into that. And so that's the same on the individual.
Wow. Yeah. That's a big one.
Oh, yeah. And I think, we're pretty much all on the same page with not getting sidetracked with like mainstream media and the news and this and that. And there are some fantastic sources out there of what is happening around the planet in different countries and different levels of, authority structures and things like that. So awareness is very important, but not getting pulled into the whirlpool of what it is, because then you're out of your autonomy and out of your ability to see, what is there.
Well, it's probably about it being able to look at everything, and it's how we react, how we respond. Because I know there's a new movie coming out too, The Sound of Silence. Yeah. No,
Freedom.
The Sound of Freedom, which is all about the sex trafficked kids. And like I really want to watch it, but it's really confronting. But it's real. It's happening, and it's like these type of things are not being talked about or shown, and we need to something needs to.
It's very powerful what people have been putting together, and the alignment of when they're bringing this out is very powerful as well, and it's going to bring up a lot of trauma for a lot of people, and a lot of people who don't want to acknowledge that this has been happening and can't find it real. But it's an amazing example of what you're sharing, Zara, around looking, everybody acknowledging it, embracing it in some way, as painful or traumatic or emotionally evocative as it is, because that's the only way we're going to transform it and change it and dissolve it forever.
And that's it, is we actually have to look at it.
What's that word that was, I know at the start of a couple of years back, a lot of people were doing this, where you disassociate yourself, like you
cognitive dissonance.
There's a lot of that, isn't there, where people just don't want to know.
It's too hard on the psyche to actually confirm that you have been duped or that you have allowed this to happen. It's a really big blow for the ego. And so if they can't hold it, then that's when cognitive dissonance comes in, because you just, if you have that awareness that you need to go there, then you're a little bit more able to handle. Your psyche's a bit stronger.
Well, that's what I was thinking, being able to, because I think I did a bit of that, because I didn't want to know. Like a couple of years back, I was like, oh, that's just too much, and when there was photos and stuff going around, I was like, oh, it was just too much for me to, I don't know, it would just take me down this place where it was just like, oh, I can't believe that's happening.
And so there is timing as well, right? And look at you now. Do you know what I mean? So it is important to state, maybe if it's not
right
the
now,
right timing for you, then don't go there, because it will bring up a lot, right? And if we're not ready, we're not ready.
No.
That's the thing, we can't push each other to evolve.
That's that control, it's allowing, isn't it? So we've only got a few minutes, but I wanted
how we embrace how we embrace, choosing how we embrace to engage. It's like going from a very incredibly heart-breaking conversation to something like, say, the Animal Welfare League. So you have a look at that, and the puppies and the kittens that are there waiting for homes. You can donate to them, but you can't adopt all of them. Like it's how can you help? How can you support certain things that are around you in our environment, in our immediate environment? Sometimes it's just literally what's inside ourselves creates the greatest change. And this is what we're talking about, isn't it? By being brave enough to embrace ourselves first.
Zara, did you have anything coming through that
you may be opening up a can of worms because there's so much.
There's probably something coming through.
Let's have a. We'll have 1 minute and just see.
We've kind of moved across a few places today because we were really feeling with today's portal, the 7th of the 7th, being around relationships and connection to others and being discerning around who we're choosing to engage with and spend time with. And Zhara, when you so beautifully shared about your relationship and being in and out of integrity, I think that kind of is a very big theme for many of us at the moment, because in honouring ourselves and our inner work and our shadow work, having healthy boundaries around who we spend time with is
so important
and a very powerful way to create reflections that serve you, if you want to put it that way. It sounds self-serving, and I don't mean it that way, but I mean it in a way of just being really clear about what energy there is around you at this point, and and being in integrity with self.
100%. And it is, look, I think the one message that is coming through is that the power of positivity is appreciated very much, but don't let the darkness go unmissed. It is so important to recognize that shadow so that you can see the light. And the true light, not the false. And that's the true light, not the false light. If that makes sense. And that's a whole other conversation. But it's like we have to acknowledge the one, and that is every single aspect that's here on this planet right now.
Yes. And I heard Russell Brand say yesterday, I watched a great podcast he was being interviewed by a young guy. It's fantastic. But he talks about, the question was, how do you live your life now? And he said conscious in every moment. He said, I try not to let anything come in, and I try not to let anything come out. He said, I am just conscious as I can be everywhere I am. And I was like, wow, it just resonated with me. It was like,
it's a signature of
and
this
that's what
time.
you were saying, it's like everything, like when I leave here now and I get in my car, I'm going to drive my car home as conscious as I can, and whatever's happening around me.
Drive with a fast
exactly,
driver.
Look at the sky, be grateful that it's a beautiful blue day. It's all of those tiny moments all add up.
Yes.
And I think that's what you're trying to say. Even the bad things, we need to look at them and go, I'm grateful for you and thank you.
That's the clearing. So if we just push it aside, so I think there's so much with the clearing and the, if we just move it aside, there's going to be a time that it's going to come back. Then it's the integration portal. Whenever you choose it, there's a portal of integration there, and use the positivity to stay in that higher vibe. But it's like, sometimes you have to descend to ascend. And just for our listeners too, there are some incredible energy healers and people that can support you through this, to be able to go and sit and have a session with somebody that can actually support you through the heavier parts that you don't think you can get through yourself. Absolutely.
And your infinite 100%. Creator calls, Zhara, when you hold those, I find that very what's the word, centering and expansive, because it's on Zoom, and I'm at home and I'm relaxed, and it's live, and you're tuning into the energies that are there with everybody that's online. It's always resonant with everybody that's there. So again, it's like we've been talking about the Girl Awakening. It's like people hearing other people's stories, people connecting in with other conscious energies. It's affirming of that you are not alone, that you are not traveling by yourself, that tapping in, activating, reconnecting, and then moving on again is such a powerful way to stay in alignment, stay on path, and be, I guess, resilient with the shadow work that is to be done as it presents, and easier to stay in that conscious moment to moment space.
Yes. It's brilliantly said. It's about the power of the now and whatever's in the now. Focus your attention on it.
Yay. Wow, this was really beautiful. An hour's gone by. That's so
Flies.
quick. Yeah.
It flies.
There's no time.
Okay. If I do have a YouTube channel, if you did want to have
Oh,
any more of the
Yay.
activations,
Yeah.
you can go.
Fantastic,
You can go to the YouTube channel. It's just my name, Zhara Mahlstedt, and
Yep.
then
I'll
on
put
the
the link.
webs-
I'll
yeah,
put the link on the bottom. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
And on the website, there's Infinite Creator Call sign up,
Yes.
and
Oh,
I'm doing
yay.
some limited sessions as well at the moment.
Oh,
so
brilliant.
if anyone wants any one-on-one
Wow.
facilitation, but
I've
let's
also
just say,
experienced that, and it's amazing.
This is
actually,
so
to
cool.
What comes through. So yeah, that's always fantastic
Yeah.
that you've got time for that now. That's great.
yeah, actually that's my favorite thing to do is
Yeah.
one-on-one. But
Yeah.
So
Well, that
thanks,
that
Zara.
exchange, because it activates you too, doesn't it?
it's
Yeah.
a beautiful
Yeah.
portal. Yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
May your 7th
See you-
month be a wonderful one,
Yes.
everybody.
Yeah. See you on the 8th of the 8th.
See you then.
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you for listening, and remember, all links to our guest are in the notes. Leave us a comment here or message us on Instagram how our guest today connected with you, or perhaps something you wish to share. A special thank you to the blissful Ksenia Luki for our theme song. Joe and I will be with you next week.
Bye.
Ciao.
She teaches me lessons, and boy does she sing. Her voice sways like a hummingbird, flies like a shooting star. She whispers, you were never born, so you will never die.